Hey folks, thanks for tuning in. Welcome back, and hello if you're new. If you are new, please subscribe if you want more content from this channel. Apparently trolling gangsters and putting myself in danger for the entertainment of the viewers is the name of the game. That is apparently what I'm doing, according to this guy on Twitter at least, who's been trying to get attention for a few weeks now. This tweet in particular made me laugh though, and I couldn't help wondering who this sounds like. The tweet says, "Building a channel based on trolling gangsters and defamation isn't going to end well for you." Clown emoji. I can only assume that the clown emoji is this guy's signature and how he signs things off in life. But anyway, I chuckled, because I don't believe that there's some random person out there concerned about defamation in my videos and trolling gangsters. Apart from the fact that talking about things that people do isn't trolling, I thought all these people were reformed anyway, so there shouldn't really be any issue. This is of course just one small snippet of things that are going on at the moment. I have heard other creators in different YouTube communities talking about toxicity and things like that, and I always thought they were exaggerating, but now I have seen it for myself, and I can only say it's a good thing that I love the drama, so subscribe for more if you do too. I may well make a video on all the bullshit that's going on one day. So anyway, on with this video. You might recall that Weezy from the What Is Truth podcast, I'll put a link below, recently had a video of his struck down by none other than Mr Sean Attwood using the YouTube copyright system. The video was titled "The Many Faces of Sean Attwood" and offered criticism, commentary and opinion on Mr Attwood's video where he and Callie Diamond, his brain damaged podcast guest who went on his show to talk about the fact that she was being drugged by her sexual abusers, they sat together in Mr Attwood's very messy, flat, hungrily snorting line after line of self-raising flour, which culminated in Mr Attwood delivering a glassy-eyed, unsettling monologue to the camera while he was dressed in a woman's wig and makeup. Now Mr Attwood felt it was a good idea to release this to his audience and subsequently deleted it afterwards. Weezy was obviously quite a fan of Mr Attwood and was highly disappointed and deeply perturbed by this whole thing, as were thousands of other people. So he decided to use some of the footage from Mr Attwood's original video in a video of his own, in order to criticise and discuss the behaviour. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that this is 100% legally allowed under copyright rules. It's known as fair use. And I think that Sean Attwood should surely be aware of this himself, otherwise he's in the wrong job. The copyright system cannot be used to take down criticism of another person. It's written into the law that it cannot be used to do that. Using the copyright system to bring down a critical video is abuse of the copyright system, and it can result in you being legally liable for damages. It can also force you to take legal action, or you'll have the strikes reversed, and we're going to get into that in a little second. But basically, if you don't like being criticised on YouTube, if you don't like your video being broken down and criticised on YouTube, too bad. If it's been done in a highly negative way that you feel breaches YouTube's community guidelines, speak to YouTube about it, but it isn't a copyright issue, and it cannot be removed under copyright. Creators, of course, negatively review and criticise not only the work of other creators all the time, but the individual creators themselves get criticised all the time by other people, and that cannot be taken down using the copyright system. Yet Mr Attwood took Weezy's video down using the copyright system. On that occasion, Weezy decided to leave it, even though it was him that created the video and him that owns the copyright to it, so it cannot be struck down by another person. Also the fact that it falls under about a dozen of the fair use criteria. But he did decide to leave it. That may be because Sean Attwood has so many subscribers, and it can feel like the odds are stacked against you, and you do have to pick your battles sometimes. Some things just aren't worth getting into, especially with all the other stuff that goes on in this sphere, as I alluded to a little bit before. There's no shame in prioritising your battles now and again. But Sean Attwood obviously got cocky about this, because the other day he struck down another video of Weezy's about him. This time on the Daddygate podcast, which is a channel that me and Weezy have and use for podcasts and for fun uploads and anything else that we fancy, such as the way YouTube is meant to be used. I'll put a link below to the Daddygate podcast channel. You can subscribe if you like. We've got a new episode coming soon. But anyway, Weezy uploaded a video to the Daddygate podcast. Now, it was very similar to the video that Sean Attwood struck down a couple of weeks ago on the What Is Truth podcast, but it had been altered in some ways. It was similar, but it was different in some ways, and I'm not sure if Mr Attwood actually realised this. Anyway, Weezy posted the video, and it is his video, and within a day, Mr Attwood decided to use the copyright system to strike it down, claiming that it breaches copyright, which it does not. So he's now struck 2 different videos by the same creator across 2 channels. Both of those videos are critical and display footage which Mr Attwood deleted from his own channel and does not want people to see. To me, this looks like a blatant abuse of the copyright system, used simply to suppress information getting in front of the eyes of the public. That's just my opinion, but if that is what's going on, copyright abuse is taken seriously by YouTube. They've removed many very, very large creators for abusing the copyright system. It's obviously not for me to tell Weezy what to do, but it appears that Sean Attwood isn't aware of how serious it can get if Weezy decided to defend himself against these strikes, these spurious strikes. Because if Weezy does defend the claims using what's called a DMCA counter notification, and Sean Attwood then refuses to retract the copyright claims himself, the copyright strikes himself, then the way it works is that Mr Attwood must then file a federal lawsuit against Weezy within 10 days. It becomes a serious legal matter. If Mr Attwood did not initiate federal court action against Weezy within 10 days, outlining his damages based on his supposed copyright infringement, then YouTube would take that as an admission by Mr Attwood that the strikes were filed falsely, and they would reverse the strikes. That's how the system works. And that could really put Mr Attwood's channel in jeopardy for abuse of the copyright system, because the copyright system cannot be used to abuse other creators, and it causes a headache for YouTube. And it's not like there's not been any precedent set regarding copyright abuse on YouTube and the concept of fair use. We've had a few cases and they make the news worldwide because they set precedents and they're important legal cases. Most recently we had Hughes versus Benjamin, in which Akila Hughes sued the YouTuber Carl Benjamin for using 2 minutes of her footage unedited, but adding a title which criticised her. Miss Hughes filed a copyright strike against Mr Benjamin. Mr Benjamin told her to sling her hook, and she decided to take him to court, where she promptly lost because the judge deemed Mr Benjamin's video to be critical and therefore fair use. Miss Hughes had to pay $40,000 in legal costs to Mr Benjamin, which I'm sure she's not too happy about. A couple of years before that, we had Hosseinzadeh versus Klein, in which Matt Hoss, who is a YouTuber, sued other YouTubers Ethan and Hila Klein, also known as H3H3 on YouTube. Mr Hoss sued them because they used large amounts of his footage in their own videos in order to criticise him and his work. Now, some would say that the way H3H3 did it was bordering on bullying, but bullying has got nothing to do with the copyright system. And therefore, after Matt Hoss took them to court, he promptly lost because the judge deemed it was fair use. You're entitled to use someone else's work under the copyright law. That is allowed. So H3H3 won, and I believe it bankrupted Matt Hoss. Both of these cases resulted in worldwide media coverage, as they're important legal cases, testing the rights of creators to use the work of others. I've got no doubt that if this one went to court, it would result in millions of more people seeing the video, and millions would find out all about Daddygate due to the Streisand effect kicking in. And I can only assume that Mr Attwood somehow thinks that his 650,000 subscribers relates to a real world protection from the law. I'm not sure that's how it works at all. These cases involve channels with fairly large audiences, but the law applies equally to all. So Mr Attwood should release both of the copyright claims against Weezy, because it's clear that he would end up having to release these claims anyway if Weezy was to push back against this. and that would either be voluntarily on Mr Attwood's side, or by court order he would have no right to keep those videos suppressed. And if he thinks he would win, he would literally have to sue Weezy. Mr Attwood knows fine well that his strikes are not being done to protect copyright. As soon as that was worked out in court, he would lose. As soon as that video was shown to a judge and broken down by a lawyer, he would lose. It's criticism. Again, I'm not saying that Weezy should or should not push back against this. We do need to pick our battles. It's something that would need to be considered. But after these legal precedents that we've seen and that people have been allowed to study, you would think that Mr Attwood would have more sense in this, because the argument has already been made and it's already been decided. Once again, you cannot strike down work that uses footage that you own in order to criticise it. Otherwise there would be no such thing as a negative movie review, a negative game review, or even a negative book review. You also can't strike people down simply for referencing your work, which Mr Attwood knows fine well, because he's not getting sued by the media outlets, even though he just sits there and reads their work. Anyway folks, I am going to leave that there. I think Weezy's doing a live stream about this. You may have already seen that by the time this video goes out. It just depends when I get this out. I am going to try and get these struck down videos put back up somewhere, and if so, I'll put a link down below once I have it. Other than that, all I can say is please enjoy the rest of your weekend. Please remember to subscribe if you want to see more of this bullshit, and I will catch you in the next one. Cheers folks.